Welcome back to another episode of Coach-to-Coach. Today's guest is coach, trainer, enablement practitioner Michelle Anthony. Michelle helps marketing and tech professionals to carve out their unique career path, make confident workplace decisions, hone their craft, and achieve consistent results. Michelle is trusted by over 150 coachees and is CIPD qualified and a Clarity Coach. Michelle and I met recently in Jamie Smart's Clarity Coach tribe. Thanks for joining us today, Michelle. It's so great to see you.
Thank you, Greg. I'm looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, great. Well, let's start here. I like to start these off by asking what first sparked your interest in coaching?
It was a while ago, and it's because I had coaching. I was really, really lucky when I was in my mid-20s to have a very forward-thinking CEO and a very forward-thinking founder. And at the time, I was an account manager. I was the fixer, so I had all the problem clients. They either had difficult personalities, they wanted to do something slightly different, or their strategies just weren't working. I got all of those clients, I fixed them. And after about 3 years, when everyone was happy and productive, I was getting itchy feet. And actually, if I didn't have anything to fix them, I wasn't really very happy. It was is the honest truth. And they realized that they needed to expand their sales team.
Mm,
So this option came up and I put my hand up for it. And I remember the founder at the time being quite surprised because I'm softly spoken, relatively introverted, and wasn't this agrarious, like out there stereotype of a salesperson. And they got me a coach to help me transition and settle into that role. And I'm so grateful for the space that that gave me to think about how do I want to do that sales role? What are the tools that I want to use? What's the cadence that I want to go through? So that was my first experience of coaching. And then it was probably like 8 years later that I went to one of the coaching academy open days. That didn't feel right for me, but I ended up doing two short courses with City University in business coaching, like Bayes Business School as it is now. And then after that, did the Clarity Coach course, which, as you know, is kind of the big few months, very in depth one with Jamie. And I think that might have been 2018, 19. It was a while ago.
yeah, I know. It's funny when you say 2018, it doesn't seem that long ago, but then when you do the math, it's like, oh, wow. It's like
Yeah.
6 years already. So that's great. And how is it that you stumbled across Jamie? I'm curious.
I honestly don't know. It was the before times, so everything was different.
Mm, yeah.
I think I maybe had the Clarity book.
Okay.
Um, and he did like Project Glasswing ages ago, which was kind of, are you thinking about transitioning into being a coach? Um, and I did that like over 10 years ago when I thought it might be nice, but actually didn't really want to leave the comfort of being employed.
Yeah.
And I still just love the tech sector, so
Yeah.
couldn't
In
fathom it.
2018 was Clarity all in person then? Like it
It
was.
was,
Yeah.
yeah. It was at Regent's University. So it actually, no, it was hybrid. So there were people that were dialed in, had a
Yeah.
remote experience, but I went in person. So I was at Regent's University
Yeah.
in the grounds of the park. It was beautiful.
Yeah. This last summer, I got to go to London for the first time. So after working with Jamie for whatever 3 or 4 years, I finally got to meet him in person and all the other coaches, which was great to actually see everyone's body and not just, their shoulders and head on Zoom.
Yeah.
It was
And
great.
then actually, some of them were by the British Museum, that end of the world.
Mm, nice. So tell us about your practice. I mean, you've, coaching and training and a whole bunch of other stuff that you're up to. Um, just like to get a sense of how you're working and who you're working with, like who are your ideal clients.
Yeah, so as a coach, I very much specialize in the tech sector. My background is SaaS companies.
Mm,
So I'm really very comfortable working with GTM staff if they're account management, if they are kind of customer success, they might be on the sales side, they might be product and engineering.
mm,
So really all the way across that. When I was at Makers, I supported people who were transitioning into a new career. So they went through a software development boot camp, very much second careers. And that was a focus, 12 months of personal development coaching after that. So I support people with workplace satisfaction. We spend so much of our time at work. In fact, the stat from 2010, which I'm sure is massively out of date, is 90,000 hours. So for me, if we can increase workplace satisfaction, then we can raise that overall vibration. So I look at career routing, career transition, and then for salespeople, that sales performance piece. And I found that I've ended up working with founders as well who really want a thought partner to get clear on where they want to take their business or where they want to go themselves.
Curious in terms of workplace satisfaction, how remote working has kind of played into the fold the last few years since COVID, and what you're seeing different now than you did, in the before days.
Yeah, well, I think it's shifting again. So I was coaching through COVID. And at that point, I think first lockdown, it was summer, people were quite happy. It was nice to have the time back. Then there was a bit of a shift in the people that felt productive at home and the people that wanted a sense of collaboration. And I find that definitely on the sales side, people wanted that collaboration and community. Like there's a lot of rejection in sales, so it's nice to be around people. And now we're kind of seeing a bit of a battle with return to work mandates, where actually some people feel much more productive at home. Some people feel more productive in the office. I've been looking at body doubling recently, which is almost like having a virtual office to stay accountable whilst I'm at home. So I think it's shifted a little bit. It really depends on what role people are in as to where they sit on that spectrum.
Yeah. I mean, when you say sales, the first thing that pops in my mind is relationships and how, you know, at least in my experience, much more difficult it is to build a relationship with a person online versus, seeing them in person and kind of getting their body language, and they're getting your body language and all the incidental kind of things that go on in that, call it a dance. It's much different online than it is in person. Um,
Yeah, I think salespeople are great detectives. So it's always looking at those cues as to what can you pick up online if you can see the head shot and above,
yeah,
and tonality. Because even prior to it really being a digital sell, phones were still involved. So you're still working with tonality to decide where to take that conversation and where to dig in and where to probe.
yeah,
And pique and if you've piqued someone's curiosity. So yeah, that's like good salespeople are good detectives in that
I
way.
like that. It reminds me of a story when I first started my career. I was in the grocery business. So we had manufacturers come to our cubicles to call on us to sell us products. And my very first boss, he's like, "Do you like golfing?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Put a picture of something golfing in your cubicle." I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "You'll see." You like the Toronto Maple Leafs, which is our local professional hockey team? I'm like, "Of course I do." And he goes, "Well, put something Maple Leafs up in your cubicle." And sure enough, when the salespeople show up, their detective radar is on. And they go, "Oh, you like golfing? We should go golfing sometime, or we should go to a Leafs game." And it was, then I had to go see my boss. He said, "Oh, now I see what you're up to."
How to wangle the freebies from the
It's like
various
yeah,
salespeople.
it was using their detective skills against them. Although they loved it because, as a salesperson, having a captive audience for 4 to 6 hours to build those relationships and understand your business and your needs and things is pretty invaluable for them.
Yeah, I've got to confess that I did like being able to take people out and wine and dine them and deepen those relationships when I was in the sales seat.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if you can share some examples of how coaching has helped some of your clients or yourself, some of the, uh, one or two of the big insights you may have had over the recent years.
Yeah, I think for me, like we've both been through clarity, so it is that understanding of knowing that you have the power and knowing that your coaches have that innate power and that innate creativity. Um, and also knowing that you don't always see it. So definitely for a period of this year, I just didn't see it at all. I lost visibility of that, and it's felt very good to return back to my sense of self. Um, and remember that, yeah, there is an unlock for me in that creativity, and that exists for everybody. I think I shared with you that I am kind of going through that process of finding my voice again. As part of that, I have signed up to read texts that are now out of copyright.
Mm,
And I was reading one which is, it was a story about how the maple and ash learned that they were all brothers and that we are all brothers. We're all from Mother Earth and we're all connected.
mm,
And I loved that story. So at some point I'll probably share that recording with you in the group
mm.
that we have.
My wife took me a couple of weeks ago for my birthday on a mindfulness walk at a conservation area not far from our house. And on this path, we had a guide, and he was pointing out these formations of trees where you had two different trees that looked like they were basically had rooted in the same spot. And it was all this, he invited us to imagine, like, kind of like the story you just told about, even though they're different species of trees, how they can, together, they're stronger, they can survive the winter and, droughts and I don't know, whatever else, and the root systems intertwine and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, I never really thought much about, these metaphors of nature and how they relate to uh, my coaching practice anyway. But I love when people point stuff like that out because it's once you see it, you're like, oh, of course.
Yeah, I love it. And I think I kind of had this notion of everything being connected for a while. And then a few years ago, they're like, oh, the wood wide web. Trees all have a chat with each other. They're like, oh, you need some more water? I'm going to give you some water. And sometimes they battle it out and decide not to and starve someone out. But we now have the science that says trees are all connected and they have this communication system, which I think a lot of communities already intuitively understood.
Yeah. You talked about our innate capacity for creativity, our own and our clients. Um, Wondering if you could share an example either for yourself or a client where it was like they had a big aha moment or I don't know, I'm imagining this, um, result that comes out of nowhere through that creative energy that you know that they're able to tap into, or you as a coach are able to tap into. I'm just wondering if you have an example of something like that.
Yeah, I can give an example for a client, and I think it sometimes comes down to actually quieting everything else so that you can tap into that creativity. And I have one particular person in mind who they're in sales and they just could not understand why their deals kept slipping. They found it impossible to forecast. They were slipping month on month. They knew what they were meant to be doing. And there was just part of the discovery that they couldn't bring themselves to do. They felt that it was like just for their own purposes and not their clients. So we worked through that, and it just triggered something else in them that then they really wanted to look at those marginal gains. They ended up looking at their stage presence, and that turned like I could see it in the calls. They slowed down a lot. They were just far more involved in giving space for their clients and for their prospects and really making their prospects feel heard. And it was a real mindset shift and allowing kind of that creativity to be how they want to show up, to come forward. And the tangible results for them, they had the highest average selling price in their segment. And so out of all the salespeople in their segment, they could hit their number in the fewest number of sales and became far more consistent in their attainment. So that mindset shift made a really big real world difference to them, and to their processes and to how they made people feel as they built that relationship and took them through the sales journey.
Nice. Um, if there's one thing that you would want people to know, one thing that would make a huge difference for them, what would that be?
I think if there's one thing, it would be that you do have that power within you, but also that there is an endless well of creativity. It isn't a resource that can be used up.
Mm,
It sometimes needs a little bit of guidance and safe space to tap into, but it's always there.
yeah. When I look back on my career, I think of all the meetings I was in where we were, brainstorming, like gathered around a boardroom, like grinding out, trying to figure out how to make our number or, whatever. And now having gone through clarity and doing all this coaching, it's like we should have all just gone for a walk and cleared our heads and then got back together and kind of go around the table. What did, because I almost at the point now where I would guarantee that every person would have seen something slightly differently and new on that little walk. I don't know if I don't know what your experience is in the world today. If companies are more open to those kinds of things that are a little bit, I guess, different, or I don't know how to describe it exactly. But do you see anything like that going on where people are given space?
In pockets, I think there's more of an understanding now that like movement is essential.
Mm,
And sometimes if you are mentally stagnated, like you were all in that boardroom, that actually getting up, having a change of perspective, having some movement works.
mm,
Um, and to this point, I remember my old MD decided to go for a running meeting with somebody. And I think he's like, I'm probably not going to be able to say anything during this running meeting, um, but I'll be able to listen. And I do think you see more of that. You see more of like walking meetings, walking coaching.
yeah,
Um, and for me, personally, it's been important to build movement into my day and make sure that I am carving that time out, at least across the week, so that I've got that time when my brain can go and wander and do what it needs to do.
nice. So for all those marketing and tech people out there, they want to get a hold of Michelle Anthony. How do they go about doing that?
They can pop up and see my website, which is michelleanthony.co.uk. It is quite rudimentary. I've got my email address to go with that. So hello@michelleanthony.co.uk. Or just book a meeting if they're feeling super brave. Michelle Anthony, it's Michelle A at Setmore, but you can find that through the website. Or DM me on LinkedIn. Like, I try not to use too much social media. I tend to use LinkedIn like a lot of people use WhatsApp. So I will get back to people on LinkedIn.
Great. Well, thanks so much for being with us today. I've really enjoyed our conversation and all the best. Good luck.
Thank you so much, Greg. Thank you so much for having me on and for the invite. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, I've had fun. Take care.
You too. Bye.